I still remember the day I bought that engagement ring. I worked 3 jobs to save up for it. Mornings at a small IT firm, afternoons, tutoring high school kids in algebra evenings, delivering food across Portland, until my Honda smelled like Chinese takeout and pizza grease. I thought she understood what we were building together. I thought love meant something more than the size of a diamond. I can still see her eyes when I opened that little velvet box, but something in her smile did not quite reach her face. What I did not know was that behind my back she was already planning something else. Something that would destroy everything I believed in. Before I share what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. And if you have ever felt undervalued by someone you loved, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear how this story ends, because trust me, you will not see it coming. I met Lydia 2 years before all of this fell apart. It was at a coffee shop on Hawthorne Boulevard, where she worked as a barista, the kind of place with exposed brick walls and indie music that made you feel like you were in a movie about young love. She had this laugh that filled the whole room, and when she handed me my Americano, our fingers touched for just a second. I know that sounds like something out of a romance novel, but that is exactly how it felt. We started dating a week later. For the first year and a half, everything seemed perfect. Lydia was sweet, attentive, always asking about my day at work. She would text me good morning every single day and leave little notes in my lunch bag. When I proposed after 18 months, she cried and said yes immediately. I felt like the luckiest man alive. I was making about $55,000 a year as an IT technician. Not wealthy by any means, but stable. I had benefits, a retirement account, and enough left over to take Lydia out to dinner once a week. She quit her barista job about a month after we got engaged, saying she wanted to focus on planning the wedding. I did not object because I figured it was temporary, just a few months, until we got married. That was my first mistake. About 3 months into our engagement, I started noticing changes. Little comments here and there that felt like paper cuts. The first time was when we went to dinner with her friend Stephanie and her husband Marcus, a corporate lawyer, who drove a Tesla and wore watches that cost more than my monthly rent. When Marcus asked what I did for work, Lydia jumped in before I could answer. She said, and I quote, "Ernest works in IT. Nothing fancy, but it pays the bills." She laughed when she said it like it was a joke we were both in on. Except I was not laughing. I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was just nervous around her wealthy friends. Maybe I was being too sensitive. But then it kept happening. We would be watching television, and a car commercial would come on, and Lydia would sigh and say Marcus just bought Stephanie a BMW for her birthday. Must be nice. I was still driving my 2015 Honda Civic with 130,000 miles on it. It ran fine. It got me where I needed to go. But suddenly it was not good enough. Then came the wedding planning. I had suggested a small restaurant by the Willamette River, a place with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. It could hold about 80 people, and the food was incredible. The total cost would have been around $12,000, which I had been saving for. Lydia looked at the pictures I showed her on my phone and wrinkled her nose. "Is this really where you want to get married?" Ernest Stephanie got married at the Sentinel Hotel. This place looks like where people have retirement parties. I remember the exact feeling I had in that moment, like I had failed some test I did not know I was taking. I explained that we needed to stick to a budget, that we were building a life together, and needed to be smart with money. Lydia just sighed and said, "I guess I will have to lower my expectations." Then she went into the bedroom and closed the door. That night I lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was enough for her, wondering if I would ever be enough. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in October. I had worked all 3 of my jobs that day. I started at 7 in the morning fixing computers, spent my lunch break tutoring a kid who was failing geometry, then delivered food until 9:30 at night. I was exhausted, the kind of tired that makes your bones ache. I stopped and picked up a large pepperoni pizza on my way home, because I did not have the energy to cook. When I walked in, Lydia was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up at the pizza box with an expression like I had brought home roadkill. "Pizza, again, Ernest. Can you not at least get us something decent?" I set the box down on the coffee table and took a breath. "I am saving money, Lydia. For our wedding. For our future." She stood up and I could see something had been building in her for a while. "Our future. You want to know what our future looks like? It looks like this. Pizza and a one-bedroom apartment and a 10-year-old car. Do you know what Stephanie has? A 4-bedroom house in the West Hills. Do you know what Marcus gave her for their anniversary? A trip to Italy. Do you know what you gave me? A gift card to Target. I am doing my best," I said quietly. "Maybe your best just is not good enough," she replied. Those words hung in the air between us like smoke. I did not say anything else. I grabbed a pillow and a blanket and slept on the couch that night, even though it was my apartment, my name on the lease. I lay there in the dark, listening to her move around in the bedroom, and I asked myself a question I should have asked months earlier. Did she actually love me? Or did she just love the idea of what she thought I could become? The next week I made a decision. I was going to work harder. I was going to prove to Lydia that I could provide, that I was worth marrying. I picked up weekend shifts for my delivery job. I stopped buying coffee on my way to work and started bringing instant coffee from home. I stopped going out with my friends. Every single dollar I saved went into an account I had labeled Wedding Upgrade. My goal was to save an extra $5,000 so we could afford a nicer venue, maybe even get Lydia the bigger reception she wanted. I thought if I could just show her I was trying, if I could demonstrate my commitment, she would be happy again. She would look at me the way she used to back when we first started dating, and she thought I was enough. I was working myself into the ground. Most nights I would not get home until 11 or midnight, and I would collapse into bed fully clothed. Lydia rarely asked how my day was anymore. She spent most of her time in the bedroom with the door closed, scrolling through social media, looking at pictures of lives that were not ours. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday in late October. I had managed to finish my delivery shift early because the restaurant I was working with had a kitchen fire and had to close. I stopped and picked up Chinese takeout, the kind with sweet and sour chicken that Lydia used to say was her favorite. I got home around 8, which was early for me. As I walked up to the apartment, I could hear Lydia talking on the phone. Her voice was coming from the bedroom and she was laughing. Actually laughing, something I had not heard in weeks. I opened the door quietly, not wanting to interrupt, and I stood in the hallway with the bag of Chinese food in my hand. That is when I heard her say it. I know. The wedding is in 3 months, but honestly I am having second thoughts. Ernest is sweet, but he is not exactly what I had in mind for my future. My heart stopped. I stood there frozen, barely breathing as she continued. You should see the ring he got me. I had to act excited, but it is barely half a carat. Stephanie's is 2 carats. 2. I wear it when Ernest is around, but honestly it is embarrassing. I knocked on the bedroom door. The talking stopped immediately. Lydia opened the door, a crack, her phone still in her hand, her face flushed. Ernest, you are home early, she said, trying to sound casual. Who were you talking to? I asked. Just Stephanie. Girl talk. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. I did not say anything else. I just walked to the kitchen, put the Chinese food in the refrigerator, and sat down at the table. Lydia came out a few minutes later, acting like nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek and asked what I had brought for dinner. I told her I was not hungry. That night I did not sleep at all. I lay in bed next to her, listening to her breathe, and I realized something that should have been obvious months ago. She did not want to marry me. She wanted to marry the version of me that existed in her imagination, the version that made 6 figures and drove a nice car and could give her the life her friends had, and that person did not exist. Maybe he never would. Sunday night I decided to have the conversation I had been avoiding. We sat at the kitchen table and I looked at her directly. Lydia, I need to know if you really want to marry me, because lately it feels like I am not enough for you. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. "Oh, so now you are playing the victim. I heard your phone conversation on Friday," I said. "I heard what you said about me, about the ring, about having second thoughts." I expected her to deny it, to scramble for an excuse. Instead, she stood up and looked down at me with something like contempt. "You want the truth, Ernest? Fine. You are a nice guy, but you are average. Average job, average income, average everything. My friends are married to men who can actually provide. Men who do not make their fiancés feel embarrassed at dinner parties. Men who can afford to take a vacation that is not camping in someone's backyard." The words came out like she had been rehearsing them, like she had been holding this inside for months, and was finally relieved to let it out. I stood up slowly and looked at her. "So why did you say yes when I proposed?" She laughed, but it was not a kind laugh. "Because at the time I thought you had potential. I thought maybe you would grow into something more. But it has been 2 years, and you are still the same. Still working 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Still driving that embarrassing car. Still thinking that love is enough." Then she said the words that are burned into my memory. She sneered at me, her lip curling up on one side. "You think you are my only option, Ernest, please. I have had messages from better men than you. Men with real careers. I stayed because I felt sorry for you." The room went completely silent. I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. I could hear a car driving by outside. And in that silence, something inside me shifted. I looked at Lydia, really looked at her, and I realized I did not recognize the person standing in front of me. Or maybe I was finally seeing her clearly for the first time. I said one word. "Nope." She blinked, confused. "What, I do not think I am your only option." I said, my voice steady. "In fact, I know I am not. But here is the thing, Lydia. You are not mine either." Her face changed. The sneer disappeared, replaced by something like uncertainty. "What are you talking about?" "I am talking about the fact that I have spent the last 6 months making myself smaller so you could feel bigger. I have worked myself to exhaustion trying to prove I am worthy of you. And you know what I just realized? I do not need to prove anything. Not to you, not to anyone." She laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. "Oh, really? And what exactly are you going to do? You have invested 2 years in this relationship. You think you can just walk away?" I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair and put it on. "Watch me." I walked toward the door. Lydia followed me, her voice rising. "Ernest, do not be ridiculous. Where are you going? Come back here so we can talk like adults." I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. I turned back to look at her one last time. "We are done talking, Lydia. We have been done for a long time. I just did not want to see it." Then I closed the door and walked away. I drove across town to my brother Patrick's house. It was 9:30 on a Sunday night, and I showed up on his doorstep looking like I had been through a war. Patrick took one look at my face and pulled me inside without asking any questions. We sat in his living room, and I told him everything. About the comments about the phone call, about the way Lydia had looked at me when she said I was average. Patrick listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he just shook his head. "I am not going to say I told you so," he said, "but I worried about this. I worried she did not see you the way you deserved to be seen." "What do I do now?" I asked. "You get your stuff out of that apartment. You get your ring back, and you move on." The next morning, I called Harold Brennan, a family lawyer who happened to be one of Patrick's college friends. I explained the situation, and Harold asked about shared assets. Fortunately, Lydia and I had never combined our finances. We did not have a joint bank account. The apartment lease was in my name only. The only thing we technically shared was the engagement ring. In Oregon, Harold explained, an engagement ring is considered a conditional gift. The condition is marriage. If the marriage does not happen, the ring returns to the giver. You are legally entitled to get it back. "What if she refuses?" I asked. "Then we take it to small claims court. But most people do not want the hassle." Give her the option to return it voluntarily first. If she says no, then we go legal. Harold prepared a simple letter outlining the law and my request for the ring's return. It was professional and straightforward. No emotion, just facts. For the next 3 days, I stayed at Patrick's house. Lydia called me 17 times. I know because I counted. The first few calls, she was angry. She left voicemails saying I was being childish, that I needed to come home so we could talk like adults. I did not respond. Then the calls changed. Her voice became softer, almost pleading. Baby, I am sorry. I did not mean those things. I was just stressed about the wedding. Please come home. I miss you. I still did not respond. On the 3rd day, she sent a text that said, If you do not come back, I am going to tell everyone you abandoned me. Your family, your friends, they will all know what kind of person you are. I replied with one sentence. Tell them whatever you want. I am done. That Saturday, I went back to the apartment with Patrick to get my things. I had called ahead to let Lydia know we were coming so she would not accuse me of breaking in or stealing. When we walked in, Lydia was sitting on the couch. She had done her makeup carefully and was wearing a blue dress I had always liked. It was clear she had prepared for this moment. She stood up when she saw me and smiled, but it looked painful. Ernest, please. Can we just sit down and talk? I miss you. I am just here for my things, I said. Patrick started packing up my clothes from the bedroom. Lydia watched him go, then turned back to me. You brought backup. Really, I brought my brother, I said. There is a difference. She tried a different approach, stepping closer to me. Look, I know I said some terrible things, but I was angry. People say things they do not mean when they are angry. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. There is nothing to fix, I said. You told me exactly how you feel about me. You told me I am not good enough, that you have better options, that you settled. Those were not words said in anger. Those were words you have been thinking for months, maybe longer. Her face hardened. Fine, but you are making a huge mistake. You are going to regret this. The only thing I regret, I said, is not seeing who you really were sooner. Patrick came out with 2 boxes of my belongings. Most of my stuff was still there, but I would come back for it later. Right now, I just needed the essentials. As I picked up one of the boxes, I turned back to Lydia. I need the ring back. Her eyes went wide. You think I am going to give it back? This is mine. You gave it to me. I set the box down and pulled the letter from Harold out of my pocket. According to Oregon law, an engagement ring is a conditional gift. The condition is marriage. Since we are not getting married, the ring returns to me. You can give it back voluntarily, or we can do this through the court system. She stared at the letter like it was written in a foreign language. You got a lawyer. Are you serious? Dead serious. For a long moment she just stood there. I could see her mind working, calculating whether it was worth fighting. Finally, she walked to the bedroom and came back with the ring. She threw it onto the coffee table where it bounced once and came to rest near a stack of bridal magazines. Take your cheap ring, she said, her voice shaking with anger. I do not want it anyway. I picked up the ring, put it in my pocket, and grabbed my box. Patrick was already at the door with his box. As I was about to leave, Lydia shouted after me, You are nothing, Ernest. You hear me? Nothing. No woman will ever want you. You are going to end up alone. I stopped at the door and turned around one last time. Maybe. But at least I will not settle for someone who makes me feel worthless. Then I walked out and closed the door behind me. I could hear her screaming something else, but I did not stop to listen. Patrick and I loaded the boxes into his truck and we drove away. 2 weeks later, Patrick called me at work with news I did not expect. Apparently, Lydia had posted a long rant on Facebook about me. She had written about how I abandoned her 3 months before the wedding, how I was cruel and heartless, how I left her with nothing. She painted herself as the victim and me as the villain. But then something unexpected happened. Stephanie, the friend whose life Lydia had been so envious of, commented on the post, and she did not take Lydia's side. Stephanie's comment said, "I am sorry, but I cannot stay silent about this. Lydia, you told me 2 months ago that you were talking to another guy, someone who worked in finance and made more money than Ernest. You said you were staying with Ernest until you figured out if this other guy was serious. You also borrowed $300 from me 6 months ago and never paid it back, and I know I am not the only one. Stop playing the victim." The comment thread exploded. Other people started sharing their own stories about Lydia. Apparently, she had borrowed money from multiple friends and never returned it. Someone else said she had been on dating apps while engaged. The post that was supposed to make me look bad ended up exposing her instead. Lydia deleted the post within an hour and deactivated her Facebook account. I did not feel triumphant when Patrick told me this. I just felt sad. Sad for the time I had wasted. Sad for the person I thought she was. But also underneath the sadness there was something else. Relief. The first month after leaving Lydia was hard. I felt lost in a way I had not expected. I moved into Patrick's guest room temporarily while I looked for my own place. Some mornings I would wake up and forget where I was. I would reach for my phone to text Lydia, "Good morning," before remembering we were done. But slowly something began to change. I realized that for the first time in months, I was not working myself to death. I dropped the evening delivery job because I did not need the extra money anymore. There was no wedding to save for, no impossible standard to meet. I started coming home at 6 in the evening like a normal person. I used the extra time to do things I had forgotten I enjoyed. I started going to the gym 3 times a week. I had not exercised regularly in over a year because I was always too tired. Now I found myself looking forward to it. I started reading again, something I used to love, but had given up because Lydia thought it was boring. I reconnected with friends I had neglected. 2 months after the breakup, I took the engagement ring to a jeweler. He offered me $1,500 for it, about 60% of what I had originally paid. I took the money and used it to book a trip to Colorado. I had always wanted to go hiking in the Rockies, but Lydia had refused, saying camping was not a real vacation. I spent 5 days in Rocky Mountain National Park, hiking trails by myself, sleeping in a tent, under stars so bright they looked fake. On the third night, sitting by my campfire, I realized something. I was happy, actually happy. Not trying to be happy, not pretending to be happy, just genuinely content with where I was and who I was. 3 months after leaving Lydia, my boss at the IT firm called me into his office. I thought I was in trouble for something, but instead he offered me a promotion. Senior technician with a raise that brought my salary up to $68,000 a year. I accepted immediately, not because I needed to prove anything to anyone, but because I had actually been doing good work. Work I was proud of. Around that same time, I met someone. Her name was Jenna, and I met her at the gym. She was a third-grade teacher with a laugh that reminded me of wind chimes. We started talking one day, when we both reached for the same dumbbell, and she made a joke about fighting for it. We ended up talking for 20 minutes, and she gave me her number. Jenna was different from Lydia in every way that mattered. She drove a beat-up Toyota Camry and thought it was hilarious. She loved her job, even though teachers barely make any money. She was passionate about helping kids learn to read, and when she talked about her students, her whole face lit up. We took things slow. After what happened with Lydia, I was cautious. But Jenna never made me feel like I had to prove myself. She never compared me to other men or made me feel small. When I told her about my promotion, she hugged me and said she was proud of me, and I could tell she meant it. One night, about 4 months after meeting her, we were having dinner at a small Thai restaurant. Jenna looked at me across the table and said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," I said. "You always seem surprised when I compliment you, like you do not quite believe it. Why is that?" I thought about it for a moment, then told her about Lydia. Not everything, just the broad strokes. How I had spent months feeling like I was not enough, no matter how hard I tried. How I had internalized the message that I was average, unremarkable, barely acceptable. Jenna reached across the table and took my hand. Ernest, I do not know what that woman's problem was, but you are not average. You are kind and hardworking and thoughtful. You are exactly enough. Actually, you are more than enough. I felt something crack open in my chest. I had not realized how much I needed to hear those words from someone who meant them. Looking back now, I understand what happened with Lydia. She did not fall out of love with me because there was something wrong with me. She was never really in love with me to begin with. She was in love with the idea of who she thought I could become, with the lifestyle she wanted, with the status she craved. And when I did not transform into that fantasy, she blamed me. But love is not supposed to be conditional like that. Love is not supposed to make you feel like you are constantly failing an invisible test. Real love sees you as you are and says, yes, this is exactly what I want. I learned that when someone constantly makes you feel like you are not enough, the problem is not you. The problem is them. And the bravest thing you can do is not to keep fighting to win their approval. The bravest thing is to walk away. I do not hate Lydia. I do not even think about her most days. I am grateful in a strange way because she taught me what I will not accept in a relationship ever again. She taught me that I deserve someone who celebrates me, not someone who tolerates me. She taught me that my worth is not determined by my bank account or my car or the size of a diamond. Sometimes the best thing that never happened to you is the wedding that never was. Sometimes walking away is not giving up. It is choosing yourself. It is recognizing that you deserve more than someone who makes you feel small. If you are reading this and you are in a relationship where you constantly feel like you are not enough, I want you to ask yourself a question. Is this really love? Or is it just fear of being alone? Because there is a difference. And you deserve to know that difference. Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt like you were never good enough? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I promise you, you are not alone. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about life, love, and finding your way through the hard times. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you in some way. Remember, you are enough exactly as you are. Take care of yourself out there.